Hello and welcome everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi Brandy. Hi Tanisha. It looks like we already got some guests that are in the comment section. So thank you guys for joining us. I see we have Lisa on, Patty, Tanisha. Griselda is actually on the screen with me, guys. If you
Hi,
remember her.
everyone. Good morning.
She was from the Lupus Project. She shared her story. So if you guys didn't get to see her there, make sure you go check out the Howse Foundation YouTube channel. We have the whole recorded Lupus Project there. You can see her story there too. We have Michelle on. Good morning, Adriana, Brandy, Lena, Jessica, and Marquita's here. So hi, Marquita. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our second time using Crowdcast Live. And our third time using Crowdcast Live, our second time using it for Lupus Howse Foundation support group. So welcome. As you guys know, Lupus Howse Foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We promote healthy living with lupus, natural alternatives, and we're just here to support people with lupus and their families live a better, healthier, happier life. And of course, educate you about alternative solutions and other resources. So today, something that has been talked about informally, talked about just, here and there, but we've never made like an actual commitment to just speaking about this is treatments outside of the US. I know a couple of you know that I received treatment outside of the US and have been asking questions about it. So this is our opportunity not only to go further into my story, but to also hear from Griselda and her story with experiences outside of the US. And then if anyone here that is on the call or, on the live, if you want to share, if you have any experience, good, bad, we want to hear them all. So thank you for joining us. And we have a couple of things that Griselda and I kind of went over that we wanted to talk about. If you guys have participated in any Lupus Howse Foundation support groups before, you know how heavily we discuss natural alternatives and anything that has to do with natural lupus treatments. And so some of them I'm going to go over really quickly so that you understand some of the alternative treatments that we really suggest. Of course, is going to always be nutrition, eating organic, unprocessed foods, raw vegetables, wild-caught fish, high antioxidants foods, things like bone broth, exercise, as you guys know, heavy on the exercise with, House Fitness and Nutrition. And just in general, you guys know how exercise is a stress reliever. If you have lupus, stress is something we have to stay away from. Getting enough sleep and rest, protecting and healing your skin with things like CBD products, meditation, so much more. But we're heavy on the natural alternatives and anything that we can continue to use in our lives that can help us lessen the use of medication. So I don't know exactly how we'll get into the stories, but I will say that even from Griselda's speech with the Lupus Project, self-advocacy is very important to her. And as you guys know, for the Lupus Howse Foundation as well, is there anything regarding self-advocacy that you'd like to just go over before we, go into our specific stories? And you guys in the comments too, if you have any questions or feedback, just talking about self-advocacy.
Yeah, I think that for me, it has been critical in my outcomes. In a short amount of time, considerably, hearing other lupus warrior stories, I have been able to achieve remission. And I think in great part because of my advocacy efforts. I know that it could be overwhelming for sure to go into a doctor's office and be on the contrary of what they say. But I think at the end of the day, we need to recognize that we know our bodies better than anybody else. And, if you feel that there's something going on, to, trust your instincts and continue to pursue, help through the healthcare system, and whether that be if a physician is not, listening to your symptoms and really paying attention to your needs, to know that you have options out there, and resources that you can, look for, just like the Howse Foundation and other lupus organizations that are willing to help really be that advocate for you.
And you're a nurse too, right, Griselda?
I'm sorry?
You're in the nursing field, or you are
I'm
a nurse?
in the healthcare field. I have been in the field for about 10 years. So I think that has, played a factor too. But at the same time, it is critical to know that you have different options. Just because you have one physician doesn't mean you can't seek a second opinion, a third or fourth, and I think that's where we can, seeking other opinions was where I sought out care outside of the country.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that that's the key is, of course, it's convenient to receive care within the United States, within our local, state, city, county. That's obviously 1,000 times more convenient. But when you're going all these different, all these different routes, seeing all these different doctors, and you're just not getting the answers that you feel like you need, or, something just doesn't feel right, or you have questions about other things. Like, perfect example, when cannabis, first became popular within the lupus community, it was something that, I have been asking my doctors about, but it was something that we don't know. There's not enough research. But I'm like, it's not like cannabis is something new. Like, there has to be somebody out there that knows something. So I didn't give up. And sure enough, my primary care physician, even though he could not recommend or give me, on record anything, he did say he highly suggests that you look into, using cannabis as a natural resource to help you manage pain. So that was kind of all I needed to do the rest of the research myself, and just really got heavy into using it topically, sublingually, and then, of course, learning how well it helped me manage my symptoms, and then sharing with the lupus community. So, self-advocacy is super important. Alternative treatments, as we discussed, and then, as Griselda brought up, that led her to going abroad for medical care. So do you want to share a little bit about your story with that?
Sure. So that actually happened with my initial diagnosis. I went to the doctor here, my primary care physician, urgent care, about 4 or 5 times before I sought care outside of the country. And that was simply because my symptoms were persistent. And the answers that I were told were like, you need to do more exercise. You need to eat better, drink more water, just things that I was doing them and I wasn't seeing results. And I just felt like something was going on. I was losing hair. The edema in my legs was not going away.
Was this is before you even received a lupus diagnosis?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was just trying to find out, like, why am I having like extreme swelling in my legs, and why is it not going away? Like, it wasn't something where it's just like one single day. It was like persistent for 2 months. And some days would get really bad and others would be okay, but it never fully went away. And that's when I knew, like, there's something going on. So my family knows a really good physician in Tijuana, a primary care physician. And here in the U.S., my primary care physician told me, we did labs about 8 months ago, and you're 27 years old. You're fine. You're completely healthy. There's no need to run labs. And if we try to run them, your insurance won't approve because it hasn't even been a year. So at that point, I live with my parents. I came home frustrated, anxious, and I said, I think it's time that we go over to Tijuana, see the doctor, and see what he can do with a basic blood panel and a urinalysis, which most of us get done on a regular basis.
So what made you even think, let me go out? Like, how did you even know that there was someone? Like, what prompted you to even try that outlet?
Yeah, because my grandparents and other family members have seen this primary care physician before, to precisely seek second opinions when they felt sick here. And they've been told there's nothing wrong with you. And then they go out there and find out that indeed there's something going on. Yeah.
Okay. And so you went to this particular doctor. Remember you shared about it too at the Lupus Project, who the specific doctor was, and they were able to diagnose you right away.
Yeah. So I had at that point, so first I saw the primary care physician in Tijuana. They did a basic blood panel and a urinalysis, and he was able to determine there's something going on with your kidneys and you need to be seen by a nephrologist ASAP. So then I brought those results here, and they then processed the referrals here, and I saw the nephrologist, got the biopsy, saw a rheumatologist here, and they did the blood work and confirmed, like, okay, you have lupus. But because it was such a serious diagnosis, I was like, I want to make sure that this is true, right? So I then consulted the primary care physician I saw in Tijuana and said, do you have a rheumatologist you recommend? He provided the information. I went to him, and that's where we had the full consultation. He reviewed my labs, my biopsy, did a full like family workup, history, genetic history, all of that. And then he was like, you know what, you do have lupus, and the treatment that you're on is appropriate. And then, we went from there, and I consecutively saw him after that. And what he was able to, pinpoint some other things that came up throughout that time.
Okay, so you went there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one time, immediately received the lupus diagnosis, brought those results back here, and began receiving treatment here. Did you go back for treatment or anything after that?
Yeah. So what I'm actually doing even at this time is like I have my PCP visits, I have my nephrology visits and rheumatology visits, and I kind of coordinate that with going to see the rheumatologist in Tijuana about a week after those appointments. I take all those labs with me and I hand them over to him, and he reviews them, and he'll say, okay, this is what's going on. Or I think, the treatment that you're on is fine. The medication that you're on is okay. If he recommends any additional treatments, then he'll make that there. But that's actually what I'm continually doing right now.
What about the cost? What does it cost you to do this, to see them?
Sure. So the primary care physician, I recall like it was like $20 that visit. The rheumatology visits that I have are $70.
And this is in Mexico, though. In Mexico. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And do these doctors recommend any natural or different types of treatment?
Yeah. So here, when I was diagnosed, I was started on a heavy dose of prednisone, as part of the treatment. And, here they were just like, well, take, calcium for your bones so that it can help. And when I saw the rheumatologist in Tijuana, he actually said, you know what, you've been on high doses of prednisone for quite some time. We need to provide you with an infusion to protect your bones from, developing osteoporosis.
Smart. So how long after you had been on prednisone did he recommend that?
It was 6 months after.
Nice. I didn't get that recommendation until after 5 or 6 years that I was on prednisone. Yeah. And by that time I had already developed osteopenia, which, are the early stages of osteoporosis.
Yeah.
Someone asked, are you only receiving treatment? Are you only continuing to receive treatment in Mexico?
No, I'm simultaneously receiving treatment here in the U.S. and there. I visit my doctors here and then coordinate schedules with them in Tijuana and just provide my lab results for them, and he'll review them there.
Okay. And I think I'll share about mine now before we go into how to prepare for these types of trips and risk, if any, if you come across any. But for me, I'm sorry, Marquita asked, are you worried about too many hands in your care? What do your U.S. doctors feel about your treatment outside the country?
Yeah, so my rheumatologist my nephrologist, when I saw him, he was like, you need to go back and thank that doctor because he saved your life. If you would have stayed here and been, complacent with the answers that you were given, that nothing was wrong with you, you probably would have developed permanent kidney damage. And at this time, we caught it in time, and we were able to start treatment beforehand. My doctors, fortunately, have been agreeing for the most part on the majority of my treatment, my medication. So it has been kind of smooth sailing up until recently that they tried to decrease. I'm taking Cellcept, and they wanted to decrease like pretty quickly here. And it hasn't. And initially, when I got diagnosed, they said I wouldn't decrease until I was a year into remission, and they wanted to bring me down really quick. And I was like, no, no, no. I remember you said to hold on a bit. You know, I don't want to flare back up. But really, they have been okay with it. And you know, ultimately, I have to remember that I'm the one that makes the decisions. As a patient, I have that right.
Yep, and I think it's what you feel comfortable with, and I feel like you're educated enough, but you're self-aware enough to understand that you can work with both, listen to make the choices ultimately that you want, because you're looking at the information and making educated choices based on, you working with other educated professionals. So I think that's really smart. But I know for my situation, and I also did travel to Mexico. And the reason why I even heard about that is, at the time I had been dealing with lupus for about, 10 years maybe or so. And a family member reached out to me, said that he was working with someone who happened to have a wife who's also a nurse who had lupus. And he wanted me to talk to him and his wife and learn about the treatment that they were receiving in Mexico. Yeah. He asked me to do this for months. And I just was like, every time I turn around, somebody is always hitting me up about, did you hear about this treatment? Yes. Did you hear about this new miracle pill? Did you hear about this? Just like exercising more, drinking more water. Did you hear if you try this sea moss? Did you hear if you try this? All these different things. I'm just like, I'm at this point in living with lupus, I was overhearing all of the different cures and remedies and little potions and things that would help lupus go away. So for quite a couple months, I just didn't, I'll call them later. Whatever, we'll see, And finally, my aunt called me and she's like insisted that I talk to this guy right away. And, good thing she did, because I called him and he explained to me in detail what happened, where he went, what it was like, the process, what to expect from beginning to end, the results his wife had. And he just highly recommended that I just try it for myself. And so being that it is in Mexico and I don't understand Spanish fluently, I had my husband look into it because he's Hispanic and, he speaks Spanish. And we looked over the reviews, and it took me a while to feel comfortable with even the thought of making a plan to go down there, because number one, it's out the country. You always hear so many horror stories about things that happen or can happen in Mexico, especially to a foreigner or someone just that might be in a vulnerable state. And I just always had the impression that in Mexico that things were like a third world country, not clean. And, maybe that, I just had the stereotype of what, a lot of times, even when you see movies, the stereotypes and impressions that you get of what, medical care like down there would be like. And so I was scared, and I finally did make the plan to go. And I remember that night I woke up at like 2 or 3 in the morning and I just canceled it because I was so afraid. I'm like, I woke my husband up. I called my ride. I was just like, I don't want to go anymore. I don't know why. I'm just afraid. And then I think a couple of hours I woke back up later and I said, you know what is it going to hurt to just try? I mean, the worst thing I could do is go out there, waste the time to go out there and be like, you know what, I don't feel comfortable, and just leave. So, nevertheless, I went to Mexico in Tijuana, a hospital called Hospital de Mexico, and they specialize in treating people with lupus. And when I went, when I arrived, it was clean. The people were friendly, and you start off with, giving your history, your information, your symptoms. They do a full lab work, meaning blood, urine, bowel, full scan, X-ray, MRI of your entire everything. And what they explained to me is that in the US, there are a lot of restrictions, on the types of ways that you can research and look into people's blood or people's different microscopes and things like this that you can use to look at these things, infrared lights that can see more of what's inside of your blood than what we're allowed to be able to look at, because a certain microscope with an infrared beam can cause cancer. So we in the US can't use this particular microscope, but in other countries, they have a lot of more relaxed rules and regulations. So they use this specific microscope that uses some infrared beam that is able to look in your blood. And in your blood, they're able to find these different bacteria. And according to them and their theory is that 8 out of 10 of the people diagnosed with lupus have been misdiagnosed. And what is happening is that our body is not just attacking itself for no reason. There is an absolute reason. And the reason is these particular bacteria that are inside of your blood floating around, and your body is trying to get those things out of your body. And so after they do your lab work, they take your blood sample, pull it up on this microscope, and it took a while, but they look to see if they can find these little bacteria floating around in your blood. And keep in mind, I'm video recording all of this because I want to come back and show my family, show the people in the support group and everything. And for a while, they did mention, they said 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 people, they have this bacteria in their blood, but there's some people that they can't help and they don't have it. So I wanted them to find it because I was hoping if they did that they would be able to help me. Yeah. And so it took a while, and finally they found, you saw because they're looking at it, but they also show you on the screen what they're looking at. So they were able to find it. They did see the little bacteria floating around in my blood, and they said that they could start treatment with me. So they started with a treatment of antibiotics and pre and postbiotics. So for about 6 months, their plan was to have me on these pre and post and antibiotics for 6 months. They start you with the low dose. You come back in 30 days. If you're doing well, they start you, with a different dose. They incorporate different types of a steroid or pain pills if needed while you're going through these treatments. Yeah. And of course, they suggest, eating more water, including vitamin D3 and all of that, drinking more water and including vitamin D and things like that. Let me see, someone has a question. Yeah, that's a great question. So how much was the cost for your first visit? So the first visit was the most expensive. It was around $600, but the $600 included the consult, all of the lab work. And like I said, that was the urine, the bowel, the MRI, the x-rays. They did a couple of chest x-rays separately because I always had issues with lung inflammation. And then it also included the medication. And I believe that was it. Don't quote me. It may have been a little more than 600, but it was somewhere around that for the first visit. And every visit thereafter ranged, like the second visit was around $200. Every visit thereafter ranged anywhere from like $60 to $120. So out of all of the times that I went, I think it came out to less than $8,000 total for my complete visit, for my complete, what I would consider healing and everything. And so how long was the wait while they were looking at your labs? So while you're waiting so when you get your urine and bowel, you give them your urine and bowel samples and they take your blood work, they actually have a car that takes you to the separate center where they do the x-rays and MRIs. So they drive you over there, that's done. And then when you're done, they drive you back. And so while they were, you know, waiting for the lab work and the x-rays and everything, I went to get lunch, of course. I got me some
tacos.
Some tacos. I sure did. They were the best tacos I ever had in my life. Sometimes I just want to drive down there just for the tacos. But best tacos ever. And you know, by the time I came back, I was there. I don't remember exactly, but maybe an hour. I waited, and then my lab results came back, and I think I spent probably half the day there. Half the day there between eating and, you know, I was also with family, so you know, hanging out and everything. And by the time that, you know, the results and everything came back and I got my diagnosis and medication, it was a good half of the day. I think I was on the way back home by 3 p.m. or so. So
how did you feel when you started their treatment that they recommended?
So that's a good question. Don't forget it. Okay. I want to answer that. Do they accept U.S. medical insurance? So I was under the impression that they did not, but someone else who went said that they accepted hers. So I think it's a case-by-case scenario. You would have to, if I recall correctly, I think she had Blue Shield and said that hers was accepted. In my case, I did pay cash. At the time I was on Medicare and Medi-Cal, so and they didn't accept that. So it was, in my case, I did a cash only, and honestly, for the results that I received, I would pay double that, to be honest. Did you accept the diagnosis mentally? Yeah, because it wasn't like did I accept the diagnosis mentally? Yeah, because it was, I saw it, like they showed me. And to answer your question, Griselda, 2 weeks after receiving the first treatment, let me see who's all on here. So it looks like it's mostly women. So for me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, ever since I had been diagnosed with lupus and been on prednisone for a really long time, whatever the issue was, whether it was the lupus, the medication, or what it was, I really can't pinpoint, and neither could the doctors, but I constantly had a yeast infection, terrible yeast infection that would never go away no matter what I tried, different medications. A couple of natural treatments I tried did help for a couple of months, but it would always come back. So the first thing I noticed 2 weeks after taking these pre and postbiotics and these antibiotics, that went away. Keep in mind, this is 2.5, 3 years ago. I've never had an issue with that yeast infection again ever in life. So that was the first thing that I was just like, well, geez, if it cleared that up, I'm happy with just that. So, and if you guys understand lupus, you know, our bodies have a harder time fighting off things. So for whatever reason, I guess my body had a much harder time fighting off this particular yeast infection. So that was the first thing that cleared away that I noticed. Second thing I noticed is that when I was already working out regularly, but what I noticed is that I felt like I had more energy to work out. I felt stronger. But one thing I had an issue with was my knee. And my knee has always been a problem for me. And I like to do squats. I like to squat heavy. And I was able to squat more. I just felt like the pain in my knee wasn't restricting me as much anymore. So that was the two first big things that I noticed after only 2 to 3 weeks of being on their medication. So after this, after this first month, because they recommend that I come back every 30 days. After this first month, I was really feeling hopeful and confident and super excited. Like, okay, I'm excited about this already. So I couldn't wait to go back and tell them my results. Did brain fog go away? I wish. I'm not sure. I mean, at this point, I still am having brain fog issues. Whether it's permanent or not from all the anxiety medication, the stress of just having lupus, I don't know. But for me, I I don't think brain fog necessarily went away. I think that some of the stress that may have caused brain fog went away because I wasn't stressed about being in pain or different things as much anymore. After month 2, what I noticed was with the having more energy, I was sleeping better because of course I was exerting myself more throughout the day. Yeah. I noticed, so I started going in March 3 years ago, and that following summer, my husband's me and my husband's anniversary, so we went to we just traveled up north. We traveled up the one, and we stayed at a resort or at a hotel that was on a beach. And I thought I would try my luck and hang out at the beach, go for a walk, and be in the sun and stuff like that. Which normally, 30 minutes or so after being in the sun, like direct sunlight, I usually feel nauseous or sick or super fatigued. Yeah, and I need to go to sleep, usually for the rest of the day till the next day, or, I get really fatigued. But I laid out in the sun, and oh my God, you guys, it felt so good to literally just lay there in your bathing suit in the sun and just really feel the sun on you. Like it was, oh God, it was just, it's crazy because it's like those small things like that you can't do anymore, and you think like it's so silly to want to be able to be in the sun, but those small things that you can't do anymore, that lupus takes away from you. Yeah. And when I was able to do something like that, it was just such a magical and beautiful experience for me, because I was like, look, I can be in the sun, like I can be almost a normal person. Yeah. And I went back home.
That's the same. And it triggers like migraines. I feel nauseous. I want to throw up. And it just like ruins my whole day. It's so unfortunate.
Exactly. And I was waiting for that to happen. I was like, when's it coming? When's the pain coming? When am I gonna need to go back to sleep and rest for the whole rest of the trip? But it never came. And so I just kept testing different things like that. And slowly but surely I'm like, wow, I can like be in the sun. Like it's crazy. So someone asked, is the doctor centered in TJ? Yes. So the Hospital de Mexico is right in Tijuana. Literally, like you could walk there. Like if you wanted to walk across the border instead of drive across, you totally could. That's how close to the border it is. So
I wonder if it's like really close by to my doctor's, because I cross the border walking all the time to go there. Oh,
yeah. See, so her and my doctor are right in TJ. So, but yeah, so those were the first changes that I noticed was, what were those, the sun, the energy, that infection going away. And, so I still, the first, I can't remember, like I said, the brain fog is still there, but I think it was about a month or two, because I was nervous. I was still nervous. Even though things were working, I was still nervous. So I was still on my Benlysta for the first 6 to 8 weeks. But by the time I was feeling all these positive changes, at this point, I'm like, you know what? I wonder what it'll be like if I stop taking Benlysta. Because at the time, I was on Benlysta still. When I saw the doctor in Mexico, he told me to get off of it. And I'm not going to tell you guys to get off of any medication. Please don't ever. And this is just my experience. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I'm just sharing with you my experiences. But what he told me was that everything that I was taking was poisoning me and making me sicker. And he suggested that I throw it away. But I didn't listen to him. So for the first 6 to 8 weeks, I was still taking all that stuff. But around that 6 to 8 week, when I really felt really good, I went ahead and I stopped taking the Benlysta. And, and I told him, and he was a little mad, like, well, why didn't you stop taking it when I first told you? And I was like, well, because I didn't trust you yet. Like, I felt like I needed to build that trust up. And now that I've been feeling so great, and now I trust you. Sorry, I didn't, but I just, I wanted to see. And now that I do, I'm going to stop. And, so I did stop taking my Benlysta. And I never shared with my rheumatologist what was going on because I wanted them to tell me what they saw in my lab work.
Right.
So after the full 6 months, I had them do another test on the lupus and everything was perfect. Now, one thing I will tell you is that the Mexico doctors, the Hospital de Mexico, did tell me that I would no longer have a positive ANA. My ANA was still positive though. So, but two things, you know, I'm gonna fully disclose and be honest with you guys. After this, because they told me what they give you a plan of what the average person deals with. They told me after 6 months, I should be fully cured and not need to continue taking their medication. After the 7th and the 8th month, I was just like, I feel fine. I know you guys want me to keep taking it, but I really feel fine. I don't think I need to come back and forth anymore. Yeah. And me, myself, I just decided I didn't want to keep going back. I felt fine. And so I didn't continue on like they asked me to. So whether that has something to do with it or not, I don't know. I'm just fully disclosing everything so you guys understand. But I did still have a positive ANA. This is 3 years ago that I've stopped going there. And so far, you know, I have occasional bouts of small things that they're so small that I won't even mention to you. But besides that, no medication, like I'm feeling great. So someone says, I'm going through this journey also. Oh, this is Terry. Terry. So Terry is also a friend who has shared her, come with me to the doctors in Tijuana too. I told my doctor at Kaiser, he just asked what they put me on and noted it down on my record. So I did share. Okay, so my primary care physician, he's like, oh, I love him so much. He's the one who also said that he recommends, you know, cannabis. Mm-hmm. I shared with him recently at the beginning of this year, actually. I saw him and I told him about what happened in Mexico, how it went, how well I've been feeling. And he was really just like, really? And he was like, what did they give you? And he was like, you know, took notes down and he was like, wow, okay. And because I did tell him, I'm like, this is something I'm considering. What are your thoughts? And he told me that, you know, he can't say yes or no, just do what you feel is right, but be cautious and, you know, be aware. And so when I told him what happened and how it was going, he was happy for me and he just was like, wow. And he just seemed like he just took the information in as well, like Terry said, and just kind of noted it like, okay. Marquita asked, can you share your TJ's doctor's information? Of course, yeah. So if you just type in Hospital de Mexico, as a matter of fact, I'm going to copy the link and then you two share yours. I'll put a link right here.
That is so exciting, Kim. Like,
I know, it really was. It really is. And I know here in Tijuana. Nisa has been asking me for a while to, why can't I find it? Okay, I'll find it for you guys and give it to you. I don't know why I didn't have this already. But Nisa has been asking me for a while to share my experience, and I don't know. I felt like it was the time, and you know, the time and the place, and I wanted to share with you guys. So yeah. Griselda just shared hers.
Yeah, that's the name of my rheumatologist. So before COVID, I'll just mention quickly that when I was there visiting him, I think it was in February. At that time, I had like another spike in my protein and my kidneys had
February last year.
Yeah, it had decreased, and then all of a sudden, like February came and it spiked again, and they were like, "Okay, well, we'll give you like 4 more weeks on treatment, and if it doesn't go down, we're gonna try either Cytoxin or Rituxan." And I was like, okay. So then, thankfully, the labs continue to improve. But when I saw him the last time, he told me, I'm going to move into a different office. It's going to be a complete new building full of specialists, specifically for medical tourism. And so now he's moved in there. It's a super nice building, and there's all specialists like ENTs, ophthalmology, nephrology, urology, everything in one place.
Nice.
So I'm excited to go back. So now that I am like, things are getting better with COVID, and I feel a little more comfortable.
It's funny. My husband told me this morning that they just recently approved the use of marijuana in Mexico. Mm-hmm. Like they're legalizing it. So I'm like, they're definitely on board making changes. So any risk? Have you had any issues, problems? Do you feel like there are any risk for people that are considering this?
Yeah, I think I haven't had any issues with, as far as stress is concerned and all of that. I think the most important thing, like I said, is to just really go with your instincts, because like you said, you're going to share your story and we're going to share our story. But at the end of the day, we're responsible for deciding what we want to do as far as our treatment is concerned. Mm-hmm. So really take that into consideration, like the doctor you mentioned, Kim, that said, to stop taking medications altogether, but you didn't feel comfortable. That's, something that people should also take into consideration. Mm-hmm. I haven't had any big issues with risks.
Yeah, for me, I haven't. I mean, one of the times I went down there with a friend, Rosie, her and I went, and I took a rental. It just happened to be that my car was getting serviced, and that was the next morning I had to go down there, and I was happy with that. I'm like, I'll drive, a rental down there. And so I guess because I was in a rental, when I crossed the border coming back, they did actually pull us into the barricaded area, where they check you, and they made us get out of the car and they searched our car. But I mean, that was actually kind of interesting, because I was like, oh, this is what happens. This is where the drug dealers go. It was cool to see that, but I mean, and it wasn't scary. It was a little scary, but it was just interesting for me to see it. So
yeah, and I've also experienced, like, oftentimes coming back, that they'll ask, what was your trip for when you're crossing the border? And I'll just say, I came to the doctor. And what are you bringing? What are you bringing with you? And I disclose that I have medication if it is that I have it. And there's not a problem. So as far as that's concerned, that's
same thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of times where I've gone and I've stayed late because we're enjoying the tacos too much. And I get back, to the border like at 4 or 5, and the lines are really long, and that part is a little annoying. But I've never been afraid. I've never been attacked. I've never seen an attack or anything that scared me or worried me. So, definitely a fun experience. Someone commented, do they offer pain meds? Yeah. So for me, I hadn't been, okay, so before I started the Mexico treatment, Benlysta was working really well for me. So I hadn't been in a serious amount of pain, just very minor pain, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like 4 or 5 maybe. And so because they were under the assumption that I was going to stop taking Benlysta, they did offer me, with the antibiotics, the pre and the postbiotics, they did offer me pain meds. But I didn't take any because I didn't need to. Mm-hmm. So, a matter of fact, I think I still have them just thrown in my drawer or whatever. But they did offer pain meds. To be honest with you, I don't remember what they were, but I think they were similar to like a prednisone or Norco type of ordeal, something with a steroid, something with a light pain reliever. So, yeah, they did offer pain meds. What about the language barrier?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Someone just asked about the language barrier. I speak no Spanish. Yeah, neither do I. So, okay. So when I went, I would always bring either a family member or a friend who was bilingual. So fortunate for me, like I said, my husband was hopeful for that. Mm-hmm. So another friend who, started her journey going, She said that she specifically asked for someone who spoke English, and they had someone there who was able to help her. Because I'm going to a foreign country, I just felt it was best to have someone who spoke Spanish with me, just because, you know, I didn't want to inconvenience them, and I wanted to make sure I got the person that was best at what they were doing, helping me, and I just went through the whole, you know, what did he say, and what did she, you know, we just had to do the whole translation process. So, from what I understand, they have more English speaking people there now. But I don't know. I haven't been there in a while, so that's a good question.
I will also, regarding that, chime in and say that the rheumatologist, the information that I posted for him, he does speak fluent English, because he sees such a big population from here, from the US, that he, you know, picked up the language, and he does full consultations in English.
Nice. And you even said that there were some that he was doing over the
So since COVID, we've been doing like Zoom visits, and been able to communicate that way as well. And his website is just like so set up. You click on it, you'll make your online appointment, and you can pay for the appointment on there. And then it'll automatically send you a link, and the day of it'll send you a reminder. I'm like, why isn't care coordinated like this here? So much here.
Yeah, like I was so surprised that they told me they were going to do lab, x-rays, MRIs, and I was going to get the results the same day. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, I usually am waiting weeks. By that time, I have a whole nother issue. I forgot about the one that I was going for.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about preparing? So people that might be interested in pursuing, you know, seeing someone in Mexico, your doctor, my doctor, or a different one, do you have any tips or suggestions for organizing or preparing for that trip?
Yeah, actually, when I met my doctor in Tijuana, I came like fully prepared. And he specifically remembers me for that. He's like, I have never met a patient like you ever before, because you're so organized, you have everything ready, set. So when I initially got diagnosed, there were so many doctors, so many labs, everybody wanted to see. And for some reason, like, you would think care here would be coordinated where like your PCP is in contact with your nephrologist and they're in contact with your rheumatologist, but
you would think
work that way. They don't all have access to my lab, so I have to have them on hand. So what I created was a binder, and that binder, on my first copy, I have on my first page, I have the business card separators, and I have each of their business cards there. In case something happens, somebody knows, go to that folder. And then I have, dividers. I separated them by labs, by biopsy results, my list of medications, any medication changes. And each time I have an appointment beforehand, I make a list of my symptoms and the questions that I have in regards to what I'm feeling, or with my treatment, in regards to the treatment going forward. But every single time I try to do that, because once you're there, they throw all this information at you, and then you're like, oh my gosh, wait, I'm going to forget. And this is like critical stuff. It's super important. We need to be on top of it.
Yeah, you're a lot more organized than I am. I mean, for me, the things that I think I was thinking about was more like having my passport, like crossing and coming across. Like I was preparing that kind of way. And then being with someone who I felt safe with that spoke Spanish. And then just being cautious of my surroundings, like I said, because of the stereotypes and just the things that I thought, might happen while I was down there. Which, of course, don't get me wrong, you should always be careful like that, but shouldn't you be careful like that anywhere? But, and especially in a foreign country, because if something happens, you just, you're away from your support, your friends and family. So, that type of cautious and preparation I did, who to call if there is an emergency, stuff like that. I did bring with me just a list of my medications and anything I was taking, which at the time, I don't think I was taking any supplements, just maybe vitamin D3. And for my actually every visit that I went on those every 30 days, I did have to go on an empty stomach. So that was something else that, they required, because when you come, the first thing they do is have you do the urine sample and the lab work, and they want that done on an empty stomach. So I would always bring snacks, of course, because I'm always thinking about food. So as soon as I was done with my lab work, I would go ahead and take my snacks and stuff like that. So, and then being prepared by making sure, you know, I would get there really early because for them, it's a first come, first serve. So whenever you come, you sign in, and whoever is signed up first is the person that will get seen. Someone asked, did you fill your prescriptions in the US or Mexico? For me, I filled them in Mexico. It was just cheaper. It was cheaper. And then I just assumed that the medications that they were prescribing were only going to be there. And where I went in the hospital, they have so everything's right there. Where you check in at, right to the right of it was the pharmacy. One time out of those 8 times that I went, they didn't have one of the medications that I was prescribed that day. So I had to go to a pharmacy outside of the hospital. So we just took a fun trip and drove around and found another pharmacy that had it available. But yeah, for me, I get all of my, if they prescribe it, I just do, you know, what they say and go where they suggest. And that was what I did. So, so organization, preparing, and then COVID. I know that was something you discussed that people might want to talk about, which I think you kind of discussed. You said that the only thing that really changed was you guys did a couple of phone conferences. I haven't been in Mexico since coronavirus, so
me neither.
I don't know.
He mentioned like a couple of times, you know, when we were doing some appointments, like our office, he actually works before that he was consulting in a building specifically for oncology patients. And that's where I had received that one infusion I had mentioned prior to protect my bones. So, and that place is like super clean. And he's like, we're being extra cautious, you know, because we're seeing patients that are immunosuppressed. So we're taking our precautions, like, come on over. I still was kind of like skeptical, you know. So I was like, no, I'll just wait. I think this next time I have an appointment in April, and we're planning on going in person. But yeah, now that things are settling a little bit better, it feels more comfortable and safer.
Yeah, I know, you know, I have family that go down there regularly, and my mother-in-law, she mentioned that they were like kind of overly clean, like they actually make you wear booties, or they have you clean the bottom of your shoes before you even walk in. Like they take kind of a little bit more extra precautions. I thought that was pretty cool. But like I said, I haven't been down there since coronavirus. I do want to go again because I just want to follow up and see where I am right now with their lab show, and I want to compare them to labs here, just to see where things are. Hopefully, if everything's fine, or you know, be prepared if there's something preventative I can do. But I'm really happy with my experience. I know they were all different. I know that what I experienced, someone else may not, and you know, so on and so forth. But I, you know, like Griselda mentioned at the Lupus Project, and you know, so much today, you know, self-advocacy, like you just gotta be in charge of your care. And if you're happy with the care that you're receiving here and you feel comfortable with that, hey, you know, more power to you. Just continue with that. And if you feel good about it. But this was just what was on my heart. It was on my path. It was something I felt like God kept bringing to me for a reason. So I looked into it. And, you know, that was why I took that route. And it worked out really well for me. So, of course, I'm going to share it with you guys because I want all of you guys to have pleasant experiences and be healed and feel better and everything. So if you guys are interested, I did share the link to that specific hospital. I have friends and family that will be more than willing to help. If you guys need help with like translations or whatever, like don't hesitate to ask. I'll always find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way, and I have no problem with helping you guys figure out ways we can help you get treatment. I know me and a couple of the other girls were saying like we should just get a bus and send us all down there. You make a day of it, eat tacos and hang out. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a fun thought. I don't know if if it would be something in the works. It definitely is fun, but but do your own research. Like I put the link there. There's some good and bad reviews. I looked at all those before I went to, and that was where the skeptical, where the skeptical on my part, the skepticism came in, and I just say, you know what, I just need to do it for myself. I need to look into it for myself. So I think someone wants to come on and join. Let's see if we can get her. I don't think we have a lot of time left, but we do have a couple of minutes. Let me see if she wants to join. And if you guys have any more questions, let us know. Thank you for sharing. You're welcome, Nisa. I know you really had a lot of questions about that. I hope I answered all your questions, Nisa. And if anybody has any other experiences that they shared, I know a lot of people get a lot of cosmetic surgery in Mexico. I always hear about a lot, even dental. Yeah, the cosmetic surgery is super popular. A lot of girls do the what is it? Is it the BBL? Yeah, BB. I don't even know what that stands for, actually, but
I actually don't know either. I just hear the term all the time. But one of my coworkers actually went and got it done like in a weekend, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so crazy!" Like I don't know.
And even that, and even the dental work, I hear is super inexpensive. And but I have heard, I've heard of a story of a friend who knows someone who went that had bad results on, one of those BBL things or whatever. So, I just think really do your research, pray, and what, you feel led to do.
Yeah. And to that, I'll also bring up that even with when I saw the rheumatologist in Tijuana, afterwards, after I had that consult, I Googled everything, and I was like, okay, let me find out who he is, where he went to school, how, what he specializes in.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And I was able to find out that he attends conferences for rheumatology in Europe, and he's done all these other presentations, but just so that it's factual information, and it's just not somebody claiming that they're a doctor.
Yeah, no, that was smart. That was a smart thing to do. I'm trying to accept someone now. Let's see. Brandy says, I used 2 apps when I needed in Dominican Republic. Google Translate lets you speak in the mic and it translates to English. There's another one that a lot of the locals use, but I can't remember when it was. But Google, even with my mother-in-law, because she only speaks Spanish, I use Google Translate. Sometimes it's hard when their Spanish has a heavy accent or they speak a slang. The Google, or if they're speaking really fast, sometimes it could get a little frustrating, because I remember one time her and I were having a whole conversation, and I thought she said something completely different than what she was actually saying. So Google Translate is a good suggestion. If you have someone, I think that would be better. But if you don't, I think that's helpful.
You'd be surprised how advanced they are in Tijuana, where they have I saw a cardiologist over there, and I asked him for the results, and I was assuming he's going to give me the results in a paper in Spanish. He gave me the results in Spanish, in English, and in a CD format.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's so there was no issue with them having to decipher what it says here.
I know that reminds me that reminds me when I went to get all of those lab and MRI and every X-ray. I actually still have the CD and the actual X-ray, all of that in this big package that they gave me. So you even get to go home with your own results and everything. So it's interesting how I feel like they're a little bit, based on my experience, a little bit more thorough. And on top of that,
I think and the rapidness of it, that you can get your results in a day, that you can go see a specialist in a day without having to wait months and for things to get worse.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Jane wanted to hop on and share. I'm gonna try to give it a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any more questions? Mikey says, I'll tell you what it means when I get mine. Oh, she's talking about the BBL. She's so silly. Do you guys have any more questions? Anything else you guys want to share? If we're unable, I know sometimes it takes a while to get people on. I know. Oh, Brazilian butt lift. Oh, that's what that is. Okay, Brazilian butt lift. Brandy, will you be able to play this after we are done? Replay this live. Yeah, so Crowdcast, it's really cool because like you can always click back using the link that you guys use to get in here. Mm-hmm. It'll always be replayable as long as I have this account with them. I'm not sure how much longer I'll have it because it is costly. And I had plans to have it just for the Lupus project. So this might be the last live that we'll do here because it, like I said, it's costly. But what I've been doing is downloading the actual replay and then uploading it to the Howse Foundation YouTube channel. So you can see it there too. I'll always keep it there if you at some point are unable to view it here. Mm-hmm. And I think she's having a hard time getting on. I know it took Griselda a while this morning to get on too. And sometimes it just takes so long. So I don't want to hold you guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I don't want to hold anyone, but if there aren't any more questions, she said she accepted the request, but nothing happens. Yeah, and it just keeps saying accepted and connecting. So
try refreshing it. That's what I did.
Want to try that, Jane?
I had to like continuously refresh and then keep accepting the camera to allow the camera and the mic, and then eventually it hopped on.
So we'll just wait another minute, Jane. If it doesn't happen, then we can definitely share again. Or if you want to, because I know you had a experience in Thailand, and if you want to share it maybe on your Instagram, I can reshare too. But if we're unable to get you on, Patty says, "Hi Kim, what's your doctor's name?" Are you talking about the doctor in Mexico? If so, I actually don't remember his name. I can look it up for you because I saw about 4 different doctors. There was one guy that I really liked, and that's just my fault because I'm really bad with like remembering things. I'm sure like if Griselda had went, she would have remembered. She would have wrote it down. She would have knew his whole background, where he lived, who his wife was, and his kids. But for me, I didn't do that. I should have taken better notes, especially if I was going to share this information with you guys. So my apologies. But so each time you go, I did see one guy more often than the others that I saw in the office, but I saw different doctors often. But the 2 main guys that I saw, 2 times I saw a lady, and I don't remember their names, but they all worked together. So they just all worked together. If that one was busy, I would see that one. So, and I think at the time that I went, there was only 4 doctors working in there. So
are they like primary care physicians or specialists?
That's also a good question. Let me see if it even says it here. Okay, so this is...
Because they treat like multiple things, right? It's not just...
Yes. Yep. And of course, this website... Oh, I could put it in English. Here we go. Okay, so medical specialists. Let me see if they have one that says lupus. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't see the doctor's name though. Dental center. Oh wait, maybe it's here. Yeah, it doesn't show it on the website. If you want, and if that's something you want me to look into, I will. That was Patty. Patty Patty and I, we talk often, so I could get that for you. Tanya, Kim, can you send the chat notes after? I don't have any notes, but this replay will be available here or on YouTube, so you can always replay it here or there. I'll try to upload it by this week, so you guys could do that under YouTube under Howse Foundation. So without further ado, sorry we couldn't get Jane on, but perhaps Jane can share her story, and we can reshare it on the page or something like that, or we could do another group if you guys feel the need. But thank you guys for joining. Griselda, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think we covered a good amount of things today, but I just thank you guys for, tuning in and joining us today. And if you guys have any questions, I'll also put my email on there. So if you guys have anything else that comes up, you guys can reach out to me.
Someone asked, have you taken the COVID-19 vaccine?
I have. I am fully vaccinated.
And I have not. So there's your answer. Okay, you guys, take care. Have a good rest of your day. Bye. Thank you guys so much for joining us.